Good evening. I had a question come up from someone online that was, how do you overcome disruptions and distractions in life? I thought it was a great question that a lot of people probably share, so I wanted to address it directly. Whether you're trying to meditate or accomplish something in your life, distractions will inevitably come up. To be honest, I also find myself getting distracted sometimes when I meditate or when I'm trying to do something in my day-to-day life. It could be an incessant noise when I'm meditating or something that comes up and disrupts my plans for the day. In either case, there's a natural tendency to be annoyed by the disruption. If you allow yourself to be consumed by your thoughts about the disruption, they can snowball in your mind and elevate your emotional reaction. This can lead you to feel upset, angry, sad, or stressed out about the interference. Once your emotional feelings consume your mind, it can be very difficult to rein them in. So how do you overcome these obstacles and return to a meditative state? The truth is, it's not always easy. But if you practice, you can develop healthy habits and implement a process that can help you prevail. After years of practice in meditation, I've learned a process that works for me, and I can depend on it whenever I feel my thoughts and emotions ratcheting up. My process works like this. First, I need to acknowledge that I'm being distracted so that I'm aware of it and it doesn't become embedded in my subconscious. Second, I need to remind myself that thinking about it and becoming emotional about it is not productive, and it can lead me down a rabbit hole which actually interferes with me obtaining my objectives. Third, I need to determine if this is something that I can address and deal with directly, or is it something that's beyond my control? Either way, it's best to take immediate action as soon as possible and start taking steps towards overcoming the disruption. It's kind of like ripping off a Band-Aid. The faster you do it, the better. Otherwise, it can feel like slow torture. It gets a little trickier when the disruption is beyond your control. If there isn't anything apparent that you can do to change the situation, you need to have a set of tools that you can use to help you control your internal reaction. This is one of the reasons I host these classes, so we can develop a set of tools that helps us through these times. This class serves as a way to practice these techniques and remind ourselves how using them can be helpful. It's a way to create a controlled situation where we can remind ourselves of the tools and commit to practicing meditation together. The idea is to develop a habit of practicing here and then to expand it into your personal routine. This way you can deploy these techniques whenever you really need them. It's like any exercise. You get better the more you do it. If you want to be prepared to lift heavy weights in the future, you have to practice lifting smaller weights now and build up your strength to lift more. After doing this for over 18 years now, I've become really good at letting go of my thoughts and emotions almost instantaneously. That's why people think I'm so calm. It's not that I don't feel emotions, I just acknowledge that they're not always helpful and let them go. I quickly, almost automatically, return my attention to the task at hand and focus on the next steps I need to take towards accomplishing my goal. I'm not always perfect, but when I'm really locked into my meditation or the activity I'm doing, there's almost nothing that can distract me. With that said, let's practice reviewing some of these tools and practice meditating together. The first tool is a breathing technique which can help you reset your emotional state. It can also help you relax and prepare your body for meditation. Start by breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper than you usually do. Now visualize your heart in the center of your chest as you breathe. As you listen to me, I want you to slow down your breath a little more and breathe a little bit deeper. Feel your breath coming in through your nose and mouth and collecting all of the energy from your brain and moving it from your head into your heart. Imagine now that you're breathing with your heart. The purpose of this is to try to align our mind, heart, and body. You can also place your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you like. Keep breathing like this, a little bit slower and a little bit deeper as I talk. This is a technique that you can use to reset yourself whenever you feel stressed, nervous, or anxious. It's a great tool to use whenever you feel like you need to switch gears from different activities you're doing throughout the day. You can use it when you wake up, before you enter a stressful meeting, before you go to sleep, or before you meditate. Let's just take a few more moments to take a few more slow and deep breaths. The other tool we can use to help us focus is sitting meditation. Tonight when we meditate, we'll sit facing the wall with our hands in our lap with the right hand, left hand, and touching thumbs. We'll put those centered in our lap and sit with our neck and back straight, our legs crossed, and if our eyes were open, they would be looking at the floor at a 45-degree angle, but we'll close our eyes. If you get uncomfortable during meditation, you can stretch out or stand up. And if you need to use a seat, you can sit on the edge of the seat and just put your feet flat on the floor. In the traditional Zen meditation, a mantra is used to clear the mind. The mantra is a focal point of meditation, usually a word or a phrase that's repeated within your mind. If you try not to think, thoughts will inevitably come into your mind. By focusing on a mantra, you can use it to push out all of the other thoughts. As you meditate, only concentrate on your mantra. If another thought comes into your mind, let it pass and return to focusing on your mantra. A good mantra to use during meditation practice is Kwanseum Bosal. Kwanseum Bosal is the name of the bodhisattva of love and compassion in Korean Zen. She is often depicted with thousands of eyes and hands, and is said to be able to see the suffering of everyone and help those who call out her name. Using this mantra will bring compassionate energy towards you while you meditate. With that, we'll get started. So we just went over a couple of useful tools that can help you rein in your thoughts and emotions. But you may have noticed that when disruptions come up, it's hard to stay calm and overcome your emotions. It's hard to settle down and breathe or meditate if you haven't learned to trust these tools. When things go wrong in your life, your meditation and breathing techniques are not going to be as effective if you haven't been practicing them. If you haven't built the confidence in these techniques and learn how to wield them, you're not going to believe that they'll work when your emotional state is elevated. When you're wound up, your ego convinces you that you're still making rational and logical decisions despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. This is why you need to build a routine of practice into your day. If you can practice these techniques a little bit every day, your ability to deploy these techniques in times of need will increase rapidly. Start with baby steps. Commit to practicing 1 minute of breathing technique and 1 minute of mantra meditation every morning when you wake up. This is your baseline. Try to do it every single day without ever missing a day. Set a goal of 10 days in a row. Think of it as your commitment to self-improvement. After 10 days, move the goal to 100 days. If you make it 100 days, try for 1 year of everyday practice. If you make it to 100 days, it will start to feel easier. If you make it to a year, it will feel second nature. And you'll never want to miss a day for the rest of your life. Whenever you have a consistent practice like this, the small step of 2 minutes of practice every day adds up to a lot of time. This is your baseline, and it will create a lot of internal strength. I challenge you to do 2 minutes of practice every single day for the rest of your life. It might sound like it's something difficult to do, but there are other activities in your day that you're probably religiously committed to doing, such as brushing your teeth. If you prioritize your mental health as much as your dental health, it's nearly the same amount of commitment. Then your mind will be as fresh as your breath when you begin every day. If you truly want to challenge yourself, you want to build on this and add to your routine gradually by increasing the time you're practicing. But don't overwhelm yourself by taking on too much at once. If you do, it will feel impossible to maintain and can lead to you feeling discouraged. Once you've learned to commit 1 minute of your day to practice, then you can add to that. For instance, when 1 minute feels easy, go for 5 minutes a day. After that, add 15 minutes of exercise to each day. It doesn't have to be intense. You can just go for a walk. When you start to feel the positive results from doing this, you'll start to look forward to it. As I've mentioned before, these are all forms of moving meditation. Over time, with this routine, you can eventually transform everything you do into a meditation, and you'll constantly be clearing out your thoughts and emotions as naturally as you breathe. My own meditation retreat has been going on now for 18 years. I meditate for at least an hour every day. Some days I do many hours. Altogether, I've spent tens of thousands of hours meditating. At one point, I went over 16 years without missing a day. Honestly, the first 100 days were a challenge, but after the first 100 days, I began to look forward to it because I could depend on it to make me feel better. Of course, some days were really difficult, but it didn't matter if I was sick, sad, or stressed out. I always felt the practice would help me overcome the obstacles in my life, so I kept going. I learned to trust the process. Most things you do throughout the day drain your energy. Even staying in bed all day can make you feel more tired. These things I'm recommending will give you more energy. It's like charging a battery. You put some energy into the technique, and then you have more energy stored throughout the day. Make a mental note. If you feel more energized or inspired after one of these classes, or after you meditate on your own, that will reinforce the positive feedback loop and help you stay on the path of practice. The energy you build through your practice is like money in the bank. You can draw on it during times of need. At one point, after more than 16 years of meditating every day, I had a stroke that was so bad I lost my ability to walk. It was pretty severe. They told me I was probably going to have to go into residential assisted living for a few months to learn how to walk and take care of myself again. Needless to say, this was a shock. I had always been in great physical health, so I never expected anything like this to happen. This was a major disruption to my life and a setback to everything I had been planning. This was something that was beyond my control, but I didn't let it get me down for too long. I was lying in the hospital bed, and I just accepted it as the new path I was on. I began considering how I would overcome this new challenge that was in front of me. For my years of practice, I had learned that my mind could help my body heal. So while I was in the hospital recovering, I wasn't able to do my daily routine. Instead, I focused all of my mind's energy into healing myself, and I ended up walking out of the hospital 4 days later. The staff at the hospital were amazed at my recovery. However, the stroke caused me to break my streak of meditating every day. I missed 4 days of my practice after doing it for 16 years. But still, I recognized how much my practice had helped me. So as soon as I got out of the hospital, I started back up the next day with the same routine. And I continued to practice it every day after that. My practice had taught me how to build and focus my mind's energy. And I really believed it helped me recover it faster. Now, since the day I left the hospital, my new streak is up to around 2.5 years of practicing every day again. I draw incredible strength from this practice, and I hope to be able to do it every day for the rest of my life. Another important thing to note from this story is that if you miss a day of practice or a few days of practice for any reason, don't get discouraged or waste your time being disappointed with yourself. Just try to start again the next day. It may take multiple attempts before you're able to develop consistency. If you can develop a consistent practice that you maintain for years, there's nothing that can stop you, and it can really help you overcome the distractions and disruptions that get in your way. You may need to play with this formula and find your own recipe for success. I tried meditation many times for many years unsuccessfully before I found a routine that worked for me. The key for me was learning to incorporate moving meditation into my life through my martial arts practice. That was easier for me to do because it allowed me to help me disperse my anxious energy. After I was able to find success with that form of meditation, it made it easier for me to do sitting meditation. This is not the conventional approach, and I realize not everyone is interested in or capable of doing martial arts, but the key is finding a practice routine that works for you and doing it consistently. Start small, with a routine that you can maintain and build off of that. It's important to try meditating a little bit every day to continuously develop your ability to stay focused. Eventually, you can expand your practice and learn to apply it to different parts of your life. When you're moving around, living your life, try to pay attention and be aware of everything that's going on around you, and simultaneously remain focused on whatever you're doing. If you practice this way, you can turn everything you do into a meditation. Then you can constantly clear out all of your excessive thoughts and emotions as they arise. Over time, you can bank thousands of hours of practice and become a master of yourself. This is how you unlock the true power of your mind. When you reach this point, the distractions will not faze you, and you can figure out how to overcome any obstacles that get in your way. Think of your journey like this. If you can take a step, you can walk 10 feet. If you can walk 10 feet, you can walk a mile. If you walk a mile each day, you could circle the world in your lifetime. That's pretty amazing. That is the power of consistency. But it all starts with a step, and I strongly encourage you to start taking steps in the direction you want to go. I wish you good fortune in your journey, and thank you for coming tonight. We have some time if anybody wants to ask some questions. Feel free. Do you have any questions?
How long did it take you to be able to experience something that maybe felt unpleasant, and you were very quick to not carry that around with you, to not react anymore? You talked about it before the meditation tonight.
How long did it take?
What kind of spiritual practice did you use, and how long did you take to get there?
It took many years to get to a point where I would just. I'm just going to say the question so the people can hear it. But the question is, how long did it take to get to a point where the disruptions and uncomfortable things that would arise, how long did it take before they didn't bother me, right? Is that essentially the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I would say it didn't happen. It took practice. It took time. I don't know the exact timeline, but the more you practice, the better you get at it. Okay, so, and the difference between someone who is not practicing, it doesn't have a tool to dissipate this anxious and whatever disruptive energy, whether it's anger or sadness. The difference is when you don't have the tools to clear it out, you hold on to it, and it becomes more of a distraction because you're constantly thinking about it. So everyone feels that way when the things occur. I still feel that too. The difference is I let it go very quickly now. And, it to varying degrees still. Still some things take more time to let go, But the more you meditate, the less attached you become to those feelings, especially if you're aware that this thing is distracting me. I need to put it down and actively try and let go of that feeling, So I've had things where something happened, it made me upset, and right away I was angry about it, and I could feel it interfering with the things I was trying to do that were productive in my life. I would be trying to make art, and I would be feeling angry about something that's not there. So that what you have to realize is, say someone made me angry. Now I'm trying to do something I love, my art, and they're still making me angry. They're still controlling me, even though they're not even here. So you don't want to give that power to anybody or anything. If it's not, you don't want to give it more power than it has. So you just kind of want to let that go as soon as possible and recognize that's the most healthy thing that you can do. Holding on to it is like holding on to poison. You want to let it out of your system. And it's a lot of times it's easier said than done, but just keep practicing. And then the key for me is I know that I do this practice every day, and it slowly diminishes any feelings and anxiety, sadness. It starts to make those things go away and become having less and less of an effect on my life. So I've learned that by putting that routine into my day, every day I'm going to have some point, no matter how wound up I am, that I'm pushing all of that stuff out of my mind and clearing my mind out and letting it reset again. So I think when you start to get a routine is when you'll notice the biggest differences, because you're no longer, relying on your ability to remember to meditate. You've built it into your day. And it's kind of like, I might have said this in the talk, but I think I did say, when something happens, it's almost like if you haven't been practicing, it's too late, because you haven't learned to trust these tools. You don't know that, like, you haven't associated that this is the thing that's going to make you feel better. So our natural tendency is to just let our thoughts, is to kind of contemplate the situation because we think we can find out the solution. But oftentimes there's a limit to what that can do, and you're better just to put it down. And then sometimes, you'll have a fresh idea of how to address the situation after the fact. After you've meditated, you might have a better idea, a better approach to the situation. But that's what I've learned through meditating. There were certain days where something would happen at the temple or something like that. Someone would make me upset, and I would be upset all night until the next day when I meditated, and then I would feel better afterwards. But I always had that coming up, even though, maybe even in the moment, I couldn't make myself meditate because I was so wound up. But the next day, I knew I had made this commitment to myself to do that every day. And so when I did that, even if I wasn't trying to make myself feel better, it made me feel better. So that's kind of the idea of what I'm trying to put forward in this talk tonight. So, any other questions? Thank you all for coming tonight.